Welcome to Voices from the Cliff, a public affairs presentation of Briarcliff University. I'm your host, Ford Clark. On today's program, our guest is Mark Rossi, Provost and Vice President of Academic and Student Affairs at Briarcliff. Thanks for joining the program today.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
You bet. First off, where are you from? Where did you grow up? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Okay. I grew up in a town by the name of Rochelle, Illinois. It's in northern Illinois. It's about 70 miles west of Chicago. And went to high school there, went to grade school, high school, junior high there, and played a lot of sports. And I at one time wanted to go to play big-time college football. My dad had played at Purdue, and by gosh, I was going to follow him. I was going to do that. And I sent tapes out, and I got a response back one time that said, "Good footwork, but way too short." So I knew maybe I'd better turn to academics and leave the sports behind me when I graduated from high school. So I went to Illinois State University in Bloomington Normal. It's a school of about 28,000 students. I received a degree in political science and also in legal studies. After that, I went to Washington, D.C. and worked in Washington, D.C. for a while. I was working for Congressman John B. Anderson, who was the third-ranking rep in the House of Representatives. And in late 79 or so, he decided to run as an independent candidate for president. Well, Reagan was in that election, and I didn't see a long future there.
Right. So
I went to law school.
Where'd you go to law school?
I went to law school at Creighton University.
Oh, okay.
Down in Omaha.
Okay. What made you decide to go to Creighton?
That's a strange story, and I'll tell you what it is. I was ready to go to law school in Chicago, Illinois. Mm-hmm. I'd looked at Creighton. I loved Creighton, but I was on a wait list for Creighton. And one day I was at work. It was a week before school was to start. And my mother calls, and they get a hold of me, and I thought something was wrong. And as she gets on the phone, she says, "Mark, Creighton called. They have a spot for you, but you have to be there tomorrow to register."
Wow.
And I thought, wow. She says, "What are you going to do? You've already got an apartment in Chicago. You've got everything done." I said, "Mom, you're probably going to hate me, but I'm going to Omaha." So it was a split-second decision that obviously changed my whole path of life.
Right.
And I hopped on a plane, flew to Omaha from O'Hare, registered for school, found an apartment on Friday, flew back to Illinois Friday night, loaded a U-Haul on Saturday, moved to Omaha on Sunday, started school on Monday, and I did not know one soul in Omaha, Nebraska.
Wow. And the rest is history. Well, so what happened? Where did you go after law school?
After law school, I practiced in Omaha for about a year.
Okay.
And one of my good friends from law school and my trial practice partner was up here practicing. And he said, "Mark, there's a firm up here. It's a very good firm, and they've got an opening. You should apply." So I did. And I applied, interviewed, and they offered me the position. And everybody at that point in time said, "Why are you going to Sioux City?" But nevertheless, I ended up here. My intentions basically were to complete 5 years, get reciprocity, and move back to Illinois because I'd taken the Nebraska bar and the Iowa bar. I was licensed in both states. That was enough bar exams for me. I'd had it. And the thing that happened was, that was 1983. I moved here in January. Mm-hmm. I never made it back to Illinois. I'm still here.
Yeah. So you're from kind of just outside of Chicago.
Right.
White Sox or Cubs?
I've actually been to more White Sox games than Cubs games, but I'm a Cubs fan.
Are you a Bears fan?
I am a Bears fan.
I'm sorry.
They'll
be back. They'll be back. I mean, they can't be down forever, right?
Well, it took them a long time to get back to where they were in '85, so
Yeah.
we'll see how much longer we have to wait.
They'll get back. I mean, they have a quarterback to build on now.
They
So.
do. They do, and they've picked up some in free agency, so we'll see what happens.
So what brought you to Briarcliff?
This is another strange story. My senior partner, obviously I was the youngest in the law firm. My senior partner came up to me and said, "You're going to go teach business law at Briarcliff." I said, "No, I'm not a teacher." I said, "My roommate in college was a teacher. I want no part of that." And he said, "No, you're going to go teach business law. That's part of your civic duty." So when the senior partner tells you you're going to do it, you do
You
it.
do it, right? Yeah.
Right. So the first class I taught at Briarcliff was August of 1984 is when I started as an adjunct. So I would practice, and the firm would release me from 8 o'clock in the morning until about 9:45, so I could come up and teach business law 1 and 2 every morning. And I did that for 20 years
Wow.
and continued to practice law. I had some health issues. I had a massive heart attack and triple bypass surgery
Goodness.
in 2004, and I decided Briarcliff had offered me a full-time position. I thought, well, I really enjoyed teaching. I was teaching on the weekends, I was teaching at night, and I was having a great time doing it. Maybe it's time for a change, so I came to Briarcliff full-time.
And you've been here ever since.
I've been here ever since.
So how long ago did you become provost and vice president of academic and student affairs?
I was the interim provost and vice president starting in April, and then in June, on June 1, I became full-time in that position, no longer an interim.
You know, you hear the name or the term provost tossed around. I don't think a lot of people really know what a provost is. Can you kind of tell our listeners what that all entails?
The provost a lot of times is thought of as kind of the second in command, the person where if the president were gone or out, something happened, the provost would take care of it. Oftentimes the provost is looked at if there's an interim president that needs to be at an institution, the provost moves up to that position. But I don't consider myself the provost, and I don't really look at myself as a vice president. I still consider myself almost like a faculty member. I've been a faculty member so long that it's hard to not look through the eyes of a faculty member anymore, because when you get into administration, the view changes completely.
Right.
The view changes completely. And I've probably made some people mad from decisions I've had to make, but that's the nature of the beast.
Sure. So, do you have to take your provost hat off to be vice president of academic and student affairs, or do you keep your hat on? What's the difference between the two positions, I guess?
I don't know that there is a lot of difference in my view.
Okay.
And I keep both hats on. Most of the time, I refer to myself as the vice president of academic affairs. That's the way I look at me.
What do you do in that position? If you, I mean, obviously there's a million things to do.
Yeah, I have basically about one half of the university that I have control over, including library, student affairs, which includes campus ministry, the health center, both nursing and counseling and psychology. I have all of the academic departments, programs. I have the registrar's office is under me. About anything you think of is under me. So I control a lot of what's going on, and it's a busy, busy day for me.
Right. And it sounds like it's a job that, I mean, obviously it's 24/7, 365. It's not like, you're done after finals. And you don't start up again a week before school starts. It's all year long.
That's right, and that's one thing I miss. When the fall semester was over, I'm used to having that month off.
Right.
And I got told, no, you're an administrator. You don't get that month off anymore. You're working, and you don't get spring break anymore.
Right,
You're working. So it is something that takes a lot of time. You have to be very understanding of people because I have an open door policy.
Right.
My predecessors all had a gatekeeper. They let their administrative assistants set appointments and nobody got in without an appointment. I don't do it that way. I leave my door open so that students can have access to me as well as faculty members. And I still teach one course. I still teach Business Law 1, which I've taught for 40 years, 41 now. And the reason I did that is because I have a good rapport with the students, and I didn't want to lose that connection.
Right.
I wanted them to know who I was. I wanted them not to be afraid of me because I'm, quote, the vice president, to come and see me and feel free to do that. And I have mostly freshmen and sophomores in my business law class, so I get to know the students when they're first coming to Briar Cliff, and I can carry on that relationship.
What would you say then? I would just, what I'm hearing you say is that your experience as a faculty member has really helped you in this position, just from getting to know students as a faculty member, getting to know and now knowing other faculty members now in the position that you're at. I mean, you know where you've come from, and you know what everybody's wants and needs are, even if you're not able to, fulfill everything. I mean, you at least know what everybody's wants and needs are.
That's true. And I mean, I came up through the ranks. When I first started, I was an assistant professor, went to an associate professor, made full professor, and got tenure. I was chair of the business department for 14 years, so I got to look at the university from those eyes, from that perspective. And now in this job as vice president, all of that I experienced in the past helps me in what I do today.
Right. Don't want to put you too much on the spot, but it really feels like over the last, 6 months or so, that the trajectory of Briar Cliff is really looking up. Things are the horizon feels a lot brighter. I know a lot of people were pessimistic, but things are looking really good as far as Briar Cliff goes. What is your perspective on what the future of Briar Cliff holds?
I think it's very promising. And the reason Dr. Droude is fantastic. I was on the selection committee that picked him, and we made the right choice, I think.
Yep.
He is very, very astute. I've never talked to a gentleman who knows more about higher ed than Dr. Droude, and he's been a great kind of mentor for me in this position because he previously had the vice president position at McMurray University, I'm sorry. And he's changed things around. We are doing things by metrics. We are looking at things through hard evidence and data. We're pulling data every day and running all sorts of calculations. And the restructuring is going to be a little bit hard for people, I think, at first. But in the long term, I think it's best for the university.
Right.
I think we need to do that.
Right.
And we've raised a lot of money. There's a lot of people in this community that love Briar Cliff, and I think the future is rosy for us.
Appreciate you joining me today on the program. I know you're like you said, you're a very busy guy, and I appreciate you taking the time to be on the program.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Our guest today has been Mark Rossi, Provost and Vice President of Academic and Student Affairs at Briar Cliff University. This has been Voices from the Cliff, a public affairs presentation of Briar Cliff University. I'm Ford Clark.